Good afternoon and welcome to today's Inclusion Works Lunch and Learn Linkit Autism Employment Program. Before we get started, here are a few reminders about the webinar. Next slide, please. Can we get the next slide, please? Please make sure you are using a computer or smartphone connected to the internet and the audio function is on and the volume is turned up. Please be sure your microphone is muted for the duration of the call unless you are speaking or asking questions. To ask questions, use the Q&A feature located on your control panel, and we will answer as many questions as time allows toward the end of the presentation. American Sign Language interpreters and closed captioning options are available for today's event. The American Sign Language interpreters for today are Callie Marsh and Susan King-Lanier. For closed captioning options, select the closed caption feature located on your control panel. To adjust your video layout in screen view, select the view feature located in the top right-hand corner of your screen and choose the view that works best for you. If you're using a mobile device, the location of the Zoom controls may vary, with the Q&A feature located on the top of the screen instead of the bottom. Today's agenda topics include introductions and new Inclusion Works resources. This will be followed by a highlight on Autism Awareness Month and information about the Linkit Autism Employment Program. There will also be time for questions after the presentation. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Claire Colligan, IDD Employment Lead for the IDD, TBI, and Olmsted section, the Division of Mental Health, Developmental Disabilities, and Substance Use Services.
Hey, thank you, Jay. I appreciate you. I'm so happy that everyone can be here today. This is a very exciting program today that we want to share, and it looks like we've got lots of people who want to know more about it. We're really pleased today to have Mike Chapman with us. Mike is the Director of Employment Services at the UNC Teach Autism Program, the UN School of Medicine at UNC Chapel Hill. Mike has been working very closely with us on our Work Together and See project to increase competitive integrative employment within the state of North Carolina. So next slide. Wanted to talk a little bit, just give you a quick update on the Inclusion Works resources. We are continually trying to get more information out to the public to make sure that everyone has the most up-to-date information and knowledge base. We have added to our webpage, the Inclusion Works webpage. I think we have a QR code for that later so that you can always put that and have that on there. What we've done now is we've put together this data summary with an infographic. And the data shows all of the employment of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, which services they are enrolled in that pertain to employment. And you can look at these graphics and you can see by where the densest population is, what people are using, what services people are using, and it will also show you across the different LME-MCO tailored plans. So it's very exciting. We've got the numbers for people who are actually using supportive employment services. We've got numbers for those who are currently enrolled in adult developmental vocational programs. And we've got those who are working in non-CIE jobs. These are jobs where they are paid, but they are not paid according to the minimum standard. And they possibly don't work with other folks who are not disabled. We always use as a reminder, we always use the federal definition of what competitive integrated employment looks like. So this is a tool we hope is very useful to people. We're going to update it on a regular basis and would love your feedback, as always, as to how useful this is for you. Next slide. Another thing that we're very excited about, and we've gotten a lot of feedback from people in the community about this, and we wanted to make sure that we were able to help and get this published as soon as possible. And so we have updated our webpage now to have all the tools we can offer in English and in Spanish. More will be coming. But these will help inform people about 1959, home and community-based services. It will tell you things about which services are offered, how people are eligible for these, how to access these services. So that's a really important thing that we were able to add to our webpage, so that people can access these who don't speak English as a first language. So take a look at that, and again, give us your feedback. Next slide. Another really, truly exciting thing that is happening here is coming in May, the state will release Disability Benefits 101. This is a directory that has been worked on by people from all across the state, especially those who work for Employment and Independence for People with Disabilities, EIPD, which used to be known as VR. This is an online directory. It is specific to the work that's happening in North Carolina. It will give people plain information and tools to help make sure that people understand what happens to their benefits when they work, how you can maintain your benefits while you work, what those numbers can actually look like. It's very exciting, and we want to be able to use this in partnership with getting people appointments with benefits counselors. This, I think, will be valuable to those who are starting their work process or people who are already engaged in competitive integrated employment. Next slide. So we're really happy today to be able to do this Linkit presentation for you, because April is Autism Acceptance Month. This, for many years now, Autism Awareness Month or Autism Acceptance Month has tried to bring attention to those about those people who have autism and neurodiversity who live in our communities. We really try to make sure that we understand what acceptance means. It's not just knowing that autism exists. It's not just knowing that people have specific neurodiverse issues, but how are people included in our communities? How are people supported and given the supports that they need that are specific to them? So listening to those people with lived experience, their family members, their caregivers, challenging those stereotypes that still exist about how people with autism can live in the community and work in the community. So again, really excited that we can do this particular presentation today and celebrate Autism Acceptance Month. Next slide. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over now to Mike Chapman from UNC and Teach, and take it away, Mike.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. The first thing I'd like to talk about is sort of language you're going to hear me use during the course of this talk. I work with many people who are on the autism spectrum, and as we talk about identity and language, many people on the autism spectrum say, I'd like for you to refer to me as an individual with autism, and I have many that say I'd like to be referred to as an autistic individual. You're going to hear me use all three of the types of language you've heard me use already today. Most likely, you're going to hear me say autistic adult, or you're going to hear me say person on the spectrum. Those just tend to be the ones that I use the most in my everyday language as I'm interacting with many different professionals and many different individuals across the community. That being said, I want to make everyone aware that I do work for the University of North Carolina. I am part of the Teach Autism program, and I am one partner in this collaborative that you see on the screen in front of you. So the North Carolina Business Committee for Education in 2017 and 2018, it was right around then, is out of the governor's office. And at that time, they wanted to do something new and exciting to really sort of support people on the spectrum moving into employment and jobs. And so they created a coalition that had a lot of people involved with it. One of them is Teach. The other one is the Autism Society of North Carolina. So you'll see lots of different sort of agencies involved with this. We work very closely with Employment and Independence for People with Disabilities, which is formerly known as Vocational Rehabilitation, or VR. And we also work with our community colleges and other universities, because we really recognize this collaborative is important, is make sure we bring all the right people to the table to support autistic adults as they sort of reach for employment and are starting to gain employment after they graduate college. But why did we really decide to sort of think about college as what we're looking at? So let's go to the next slide. So what we recognize, if you look at some of the data from our own North Carolina Department of Commerce, is that we look at the number of jobs that are going to be coming up in North Carolina over the next 10 years. And as we look at those jobs, we're looking at roughly 500,000 to 750,000 jobs on an annual basis that are going to be opening in the state of North Carolina. And when you look at the percentage of those jobs, you see a large portion of them require some type of advanced education beyond high school. Whether or not it's just some type of college, not necessarily a degree, it may be one course or two courses that you sort of take. There may be some sort of post-secondary or an associate's degree that you may earn from a community college. Then we have our people that go to universities and accredited organizations where you have a bachelor's degree and a master's or doctoral profession. So the workforce in the state of North Carolina is changing. And so we're changing, or people are going to need these advanced degrees. And so if we go to the next slide, one of the things that one of our national organizations, the Policy Impact Project, is doing is sort of looking at the number of adults on the autism spectrum. And one focus of that is employment. Their impact statement is on the web. You can Google it. You can come up and find it. It's a really nice statement. It talks about a lot around autism, but I'm focusing on just their autism statistics around the adult population. That being said, yesterday, I think the CDC released new statistics for people on the autism spectrum, which means these are a little off. When I made these, we were talking 1 in 36 was the current diagnostic rate. Yesterday, they released numbers of 1 in 31. But these numbers are still on target for what we're talking about in terms of the United States. There's an estimated 5.5 million adults on the spectrum in the United States. And we start thinking about that, we look at how many people are turning 18 every year. And we're seeing somewhere between 70 and 111,000 youth on the autism spectrum are turning 18 years old each and every year. But when we look at sort of the data and we look at sort of how they access services and how they gain supports they need to be successful, what we also find is that only 1% of those autistic adults are actually receiving the employment support that they would like or need to be successful. Next slide. So when you look at some of these other statistic data, what you see is when you look at these other sort of activities of employment, these are the numbers on people with autism from that same Policy Impact Project. Only 14% have had a paid job in the community. Of those, some of them that were paid in some type of other facility or day programs, as sometimes called, was only 42%. But then once again, we still have 27% of those individuals who have never had any type of work. And so when you think about that, that's a huge statistic and a huge number of people that are struggling to be successful in our adult world. Next slide. So when I go back to it, we talk about those people on the autism spectrum. When you look at all abilities or disabilities in the United States, what is traditionally said is most people with autism or those on the spectrum are some of those with the lowest employment rates when you compare them to other populations. What we're also seeing, though, is even with that, 34.7% of autistic people are attending college these days. So they're going to some type of post-secondary education. So when I start to think about that, we should have 34.7% of our people with autism in advanced degrees because they're going to college, they're being successful, they're doing all those. And these numbers, 34.7%, come straight from some research that was done out of the UK. So the link's not up here, but I want to let you know that these are not just numbers I'm making up. They're actually research studies and policy practice numbers that I'm pulling from. But there was also another study done by our NIH here in the United States that says people on the autism spectrum with college degrees are less likely to be employed than those without a college degree. So think about that. These are the people that have shown the ability to understand complex information, that college degree type of education that we talk about. But yet, when it comes to getting a job, something's broken and something is not working. And so that's when we started thinking about how can we change that here in the state of North Carolina. So let's think about, next slide, please. So when we look at it, just in North Carolina, what can we expect? Well, these are the numbers we can expect. If you take all that data from the national, 1 in 36, 42% getting jobs, number of people turning adults, what you're seeing is roughly 2,500 to 4,000 individuals on the spectrum are turning 18 every year. And of those, we're looking at roughly around 1,000 who will attend college. Okay. And of those, we're going to look at, of that, almost none of them are going to get a job. So we're looking at very few being successful. So over the next 10 years, 10,000 college educated autistic adults could be unemployed in the state of North Carolina. And to me, that's something that needs to be addressed. And I think that's why we started this with the North Carolina Business Committee Education and created what we call the Link It program, because it really was designed to address what we call these barriers to being successful for just these individuals with college degrees. So let's go to the next slide. When we think about barriers, we think about all these are barriers that people on the autism spectrum, as well as professionals, have helped us identify as challenges for people on the spectrum. We find that there's difficulty with things such as filling out those traditional job applications, going through that hiring process. It's hard enough in the applications for non-college degree requiring positions, but those who require college degrees, their application processes are even more involved and more complicated. And that lends itself to another barrier for people that are struggling to understand all the various challenges in working in these professional fields. We talk about the problem of getting in the door. You know, they always say, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And we're seeing a lot of that, because what we see is getting in the door and getting that interview is a challenge in terms of making those connections. But then on top of it, we look at your degrees and we look at your experience. And many times what we're seeing is people on the autism spectrum, their experiences don't match up well with others. They have the knowledge, they have the abilities, and they have the skills. But what we're seeing is when it comes to looking at it on paper, it doesn't look like they do. So we talk about all the things that come up. The next thing we talk about is getting through those interview processes. And we're going to talk about those interview processes later. But once again, it is going through those interviews. I tell people all the time that an interview is a social communication contest. And what we know about autism is the diagnosis says you have to have difficulties with social communication activities. And so we're putting people forward and asking them to present themselves better than everyone else. But while they're presenting themselves better than everyone else, we're asking them to do it through something that may not be easy or is very challenging for them to do. And so how do we change those things are what we're going to talk about. We also talk about employers' understanding of autism. We do a lot of autism education. We're going to talk about those. And then we talk about these other things around the needed supports that every person needs on a job. Okay. Next slide, please. So this is our Link It program. You've already heard me talk a lot about some of our partners. These are just some of the people we're talking about. What I want to recognize and to everybody to know is this is a collaborative, but in reality, this program, what it entails, we don't have jobs just waiting for people to fill. So what we are is because we are out there doing just like each and every other agency, we're out there talking to employers, we're talking to people who are searching for jobs, and we're trying to match people. But the Link It program is really just another resource to help people be successful. Because it's targeted and it's targeted towards people on the autism spectrum, sometimes it can give you a better advantage than if you went through a program that was not targeted specifically for autism. So that being said, I want to be very clear. We don't just have a lot of jobs sitting out there waiting for people. We do work with lots of companies, and all these agencies here have lots and lots of connections. But we're doing the same thing as everyone else who's looking for a job. We're trying to find that best perfect fit for you. And that means we're not going to put you just in any job, but we're out there finding a job for you. And sometimes that takes time. Next slide, please. For those people that have been successful, one of the things that they say is they talk about how much happier they are in their job. But here's just one individual who's been through our program. And the quote he talks about here is a beautiful quote, where most of society would like to count me out, but Lincoln stepped up and counted me in. Because of this program, I have a job and can support myself. Because of this partnership, my story has changed. And that's what we're talking about, creating these partnerships between the individual on the autism spectrum and companies that understand how to support the autistic individual. Next slide. So one of the things people talk about is, Mike, I go to your Linkit portal. It's not my Linkit portal, it's NCBCE's. But that being said, when they go to the portal, what it is, it's a way for you to sign up. It's a way for you to enter in there. But when you enter your name in as saying, I'm interested in accessing potential services you have, one of the things it does is it takes away some of the challenge an individual may have with sort of advocating for themselves. And so one of the things that we talk about is this disclosure. Disclosure is a personal thing. It's something every person has the right to do. But by coming through the Linkit program, one of the things it does is we are disclosing not that you have autism, but we're disclosing that we support people on the autism spectrum. And as a result of that, what it does is it allows us to talk about the things that would help you be successful. It's going to talk about what type of accommodations may help many different types of people succeed. But most importantly, we're talking about people on the autism spectrum. It also helps us match with those companies that are really trying to seek out quality talent and sort of embracing the skills and perspective that individuals on the spectrum bring. Recognizing that that talent is there. All those college individuals that we talked about have an amazing amount of talent. It's just getting that talent to the employers and the employers understanding how to bring it out of their workforce. So what we do recognize is in any company, having a broad array of people that think differently and that have different skill sets helps a company look at problems and solve them in more unique and beneficial ways. And so when we think about that, our autistic talent is just another way for employers to be better at what they're doing, help them sort of look at being more productive companies in general. One of the things that we know is our employers who've been a part of this say they really sort of value the dependability and the loyalty that they get from having autistic individuals. But most importantly, the reason they get that dependability and loyalty is because they're accepting, because they're really working hard to make sure that they can support all people in their company. But most importantly, they're supporting people on the autism spectrum. And that gives people on the autism spectrum a chance to shine and show what they can do and bring that value to every company. Next slide. So when we talk about sort of our national numbers and sort of how is Linkit any different or better than other programs, one of the things that I will say that's really unique is when we look at the national data. You saw some of that national data earlier. And when you look at people that are going through the employment and independence for people with disabilities, formerly VR, that same people that did that public policy impact statement also report that 37.5% of people on the autism spectrum who go through VR are successful at finding a job. They call it their 90-day closure, their outcome is successful. Well, when we look at two of the programs that are supporting Linkit in the NCBCE initiative, what we find is we're having 83.5% of our people are being more successful. So that's a big jump in success. And part of the reason why we say this happens is because we're really helping companies understand autism. We're really helping them appreciate the differences that come from this unique population. The other thing we do is we talk about how we change their process from the hiring to job descriptions and interviewing. But most importantly, we're also talking about supporting people with autism. And we're giving employers the tools to succeed so that they can work well with all of their employees, but most importantly, how they work well with their autistic workers. Next slide. So this is how we do it. This is what we do. So we make connections with employers. And if there's any employer out there that's interested, who's listening to this talk or listens to it later, please go to the Linkit website. I'm going to give you that at the end, but look for the Linkit website and sign up. someone from NCBCE will call you quickly and set up an appointment to talk about our process. But this is our process. First of all, we train those businesses. We give them that autism awareness, not just in April, but we give them the other 11 months out of the year as well. We're also making sure they understand. We're also creating supports. We're developing those supports within the company. So it's not just Linkit who's supporting you. It's not just the Autism Society or Teach. It's the company supporting their employers. The other thing we do is we really look at identifying compatible jobs. We start looking at jobs that many of the people that we currently know who are in the Linkit portal can do. So we start saying we have this skill set. We have jobs for people who are in library science, people who are in advanced manufacturing, who have mechanical engineering degrees. So we look at all these different types of jobs and say, here are the people that we know could possibly fill some of your positions. And then we're going to help them tailor that interview process that really sort of that gets through that weakness, that challenge that many people with autism have around that social communication contest. So we're really going to make sure we look at a different way of having the autistic adult share their skill set. We also recognize the need for peer mentors because it can't just be the supervisors and the managers of any company that do this. It's about changing philosophy. It's about changing the entire culture of the employment site. And we talk about doing that as part of this with having peer mentors that are also trained in how to understand and support autistic coworkers. And then last but not least, if we also are there to provide supports on the job that can really help you and your employer succeed together. That's our whole goal, is to making sure that there's this nice partnership that bridges that gap. Next slide. So if you go to our Linkit website, what you'll see is this is the process. So I want to make sure that people understand the various steps. So the first thing is applying for Linkit, applying for this portal that says, are there resources here that I can use? Okay. And if so, then this is great. This is just one of the many ways in which you're going to try to find a job. If you're an employer, you can still go there. You just don't have to go through all these steps. We'll contact you and we'll skip to some of the later steps in this process. But then after you're connected to Linkit, one of the things that we'll do is we are looking for people who are on the autism spectrum. This is an autism spectrum program. So we are looking for people that have that diagnosis. So that's important. And when we do that, we're going to afterwards connect you with employment and independence for people with disabilities, because the local EIPD is going to support us, the Autism Society of North Carolina, and Teach. They're going to help us make connections, and they're going to help you as well as the individual. So once again, we're all going to work together, and employment and independence for people with disabilities is a big part of our success process. Then once we have this, once you're connected to EIPD, you'll have a meeting with the Employment for Independence for people with disabilities. You'll be assigned a counselor. And then from that counseling, you'll be referred to either the Autism Society of North Carolina or Teach. And at that point, we will start working to help look at jobs that we may have access to or companies we have access to, and matching them to sort of your skill set. That's where that job coaching from ASNC or Teach comes in. And then last but not least, we're then working with those companies to find out what it is that we can match. We also are talking about internships is one thing in which we match people, but most importantly, our big push lately has been for direct hires and employment. Let's go to that next slide, please. So when we're getting started, we really want to make sure I highlight this, that we bring employers and employees together, but we don't have jobs. We don't have jobs that are being held, because we're talking about competitive integrated employment, which means the jobs have to be open to everyone in the United States to apply. And so we have those, so we're applying just like you are. The only difference is we're probably working with the company behind the scene. We're also asking you to sign up for EIPD, working with Teach and the Autism Society, like I've already said. But most importantly, we're going to work with you, the applicant, on identifying your employment goals. And we identify those employment goals, that sort of leads us to our next step, which is on our next slide. So we're going to work at finding a company and a job that's a good match for you. We're going to be applying through different types of portals, just like you would. We're going to ask you to help us with some of this application process. It's not going to be something that we all do. We're really going to make sure the individual on the autism spectrum is applying for these jobs as well. The other thing I've alluded to is how we modify this interview. Asking someone who has a social communication difficulty to demonstrate their skills through a social communication contest called an interview is not always the best way. So we've started doing things where we ask companies for their interview questions in advance. We modify the questions, and then we work with the employer to give those to the individual in advance so they can see the questions that are going to be asked. But most importantly, we also ask for a hands-on opportunity as well. So we're going to look at the ways we can not have you talk about your skills, but show your skills. If you're really good at doing computer programming, we're going to have you show some computer programming. If you're really good at design, we're going to have you design something that the employer would possibly use. So we're looking at that ability to really show those skills, not tell those skills. We're also going to offer support during the interview for both you and the employer, because we recognize these are two people that are struggling to communicate at this point. And so we're trying to bridge that gap of communication and sort of make sure that both people get the information they need and are able to give the information that they have. We're also going to assist with any disclosure or advocacy to help look for any accommodations during this job matching or this interview process. Next slide. So we identify what current goal you have for employment. If you're still in school, one of the things that we work with, and we work with EIPD to do this, is sort of create internships. And these internships may be paid, but not always. They're roughly 12 weeks. They can be shorter or longer, but an internship is a chance for you to gain skills while you're still in school. And so while you're still in school, it gives you a chance to build that resume that we talk about, because that's what many other people who go to college do. So we're trying to make sure your college experience has the same opportunities. The next thing we also talk about is whether or not you've graduated. And it's just, I just need a job. Okay, so we talk about that direct hire to employment, and we'll work with you on creating resumes and applications. All those other things we've already talked about in terms of educating the employer. I have 3 of those set up for this month alone, where I'm educating new employers to our program on how to support and hire autistic adults. We're going to talk about how we modify that interview and help managers do that themselves. And then we're going to provide that direct support when we're actually finding work. Next step. So when we're on the job, we're going to talk about disclosing. We're going to talk about what you would like to disclose. It may not be that you have autism, but you may want to talk about your needs. I like things that are routine. I struggle in social situations like going to the cafeteria, or I struggle in meetings where there's all these bright lights. So we're going to talk about identifying what we are now calling success enablers. So the success enablers are what we are calling accommodations now, because every company is about enabling their employees to be successful. And so when we talk about success enablers, they're much more likely to say that is something I want to do. And so it really helps us get past that accommodation, which sometimes many companies struggle with in terms of accommodations. When they hear that word, they think the great big ADA law, and they start getting worried that what they're doing is going to violate that law in some way. But if I tell them that all we're doing is helping people be successful, that they're much more likely to do. We're also going to help with implementing any of these strategies that will help you and the company be successful. And then we're going to work on communication strategies that will help you be successful as well. Next slide. Some of the typical success enablers that we have seen over the years, it's all based upon each individual. There are some general things that help all of us be successful that we can talk about in terms of being clear with our communication and all those things. But when we talk about it, many companies ask me, what are some typical things I can expect to have to do? And I usually write some of these on a board and show them some of these very simple things. But what they are is maybe a designated work or lunch area for an individual, Maybe it's one that's not in a big crowded place because they struggle with loud noises or they struggle with being around so many people. Uh, it may be supporting the employer for how to interact and work with their individual, such as giving communication, not just verbally, but maybe writing it down. Making sure when we go to meetings, we have an agenda. Simple things like this. And what they really find is when they start doing these small things that help people on the autism spectrum be successful, what they find is they help all their other employees be successful too. So what we find is most of these things cost them absolutely nothing to implement. Studies have shown that even with things that do cost money, most of them cost less than $500. And those are things like screen readers or other types of accommodations that people need. But even then, most of them are free, and those that do cost less than 500 in many cases. The other thing that we may do, and we've seen many companies be successful around, is creating an autism employee resource group. So a resource group that's of managers, of parents who may also have children on the autism spectrum, as well as workers and coworkers who are on the autism spectrum, who may or may not be a part of the Linkit program, but who just happen to work there. And so what we see when they create these autism employee resource groups, the other individuals who say, I'm so glad we're doing this, I too am on the spectrum. So they're self-identifying and coming out and sort of really helping everyone be successful. They're helping the company get what they need, and they're helping the other new employees on the autism spectrum learn what it's like to be an employee within that particular company. And then last but not least, we sort of help people recognizing what you may need. Every person's unique and every person is just a little bit different. Okay. Next slide, please. So I encourage you to go to this website. It is www.linc-it.org. Do not go to .com. Last time I looked, .com took you to a computer program repair company in the UK. So go to .org. That's the one thing I'll tell you. It helps both participants and employers get involved. So I encourage both of you. You can see right across the top, we have information for participants and employers to click. It'll walk through everything I've talked about today. The one thing that I'm really going to say that's really useful is the resources page has a lot of resources that anyone looking for a job can find useful. It's how to complete a resume, how to fill out an application, practice questions for interviews. Everything's there. So it's a great resource, and the resource library is continuing to grow. The other thing we have for people on the autism spectrum are these reoccurring webinars. And these webinars are focused on one particular aspect and one topic, and they give you the information that you need to succeed in the employment partnership that we're trying to create between you and other employers. Next slide. This next slide, as you can see, is just some of the quotes that have come about from many of our other Linkit interns, as well as from some of our employers. So just some really great things. We're really happy to be a part of the Linkit program. We see North Carolina and the Triangle is a perfect environment to attract and support and foster talent that sees the world a little bit differently. And then from a Linkit intern, our brains work inherently different than somebody who isn't autistic. So we're going to look at it differently, and it's just part of our experience. So just some really great ways of sort of saying things. And that is all I have for today. Did we have any questions in the comment that I need to address?
Hi, Mike. Thanks for sharing. There are a few questions in the comment about Linkit. The first one is Linkit available in all 100 counties as a vendor for EIPD?
Yeah, so we have main focus areas. I'm going to be completely honest. So we have main areas in sort of the Triangle of North Carolina, the Triad, down in the Charlotte, Mecklenburg area, and a few other outlying major metropolitan areas. But those are the three big areas. If someone doesn't need our direct support on site, and this has happened to some of our employers where they've moved out of state. Okay, they're North Carolina employees. They go to an internship or a job in another state. One of the things we have been able to do, if it's approved by EIPD, we can do remote support. And so some of that remote support is there. It's just hard to be on site when I have to drive 5 hours to a job every day because both myself and the Autism Society of North Carolina do not have physical offices in all of the 100 counties. So if it's close to one of them, we could probably come close to offering some type of support. Good question.
Thanks, Mike.
Mhm.
The second question is this only available for those who have succeeded or graduated college?
It's for anyone that has a college degree or college experience. So someone who has some type of certificate, I would say, or is working on a certificate or working on a degree. So we talked about those internship programs. Those internships are for people that are going into college. Okay. So for people who are in college. So if you're interested in continuing your college education, but also gaining an internship experience, this is a valuable portal to help us sort of match and potentially find an internship for you. But for those who've already graduated or who have achieved that certificate, yes, typically we're requiring that they have some type of college certificate after you've graduated and you're no longer in school to be a part of this program. Now, both Teach and the Autism Society and other providers and vendors throughout the state support people who don't have college degrees. So there are lots of other resources for people that may or may not have college degrees. This is just a autistic college degree bound or focused program.
Thanks, Mike. There's one more question from Catherine Gaddis, who is asking, I am part of a cohort in a graduate certificate program at UNC, and our project is an improvement project looking at underemployment of ASD individuals within the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. We are working on increasing awareness with the community and employers, and I'm seeing potential crossover with this project, as well as integration with early diagnosis service with MAHEC. How can we best plug in to both to help augment our project as well as provide potential insights to your group?
Yeah, so I'd be more than happy to talk to you. I'm sure we could set up a call between us, the NCBCE team, who'd be more than willing to jump on a call, as well as the Autism Society of North Carolina. So what I would encourage you to do is I have my email address up here. Send me an email with some of that information in. And what I'll do is I'll send out an email to that larger group I just described, and we'll set up some time for us all to talk and sort of help see what we can do to work together so both of us can be a little bit better at what we're doing. Thank you. Was that all of them?
That is the end of the questions. I think next we are going to transition over to Claire.
Thank you again, Mike, for an incredible presentation. I thought I knew a lot about LinkedIn and I learned more today, which is just wonderful. I want to remind everyone that you will be able to talk to us at NCARF, which starts, I believe, April 30th, maybe it's May 1st. So we will be attending NCARF and we will be talking about wraparound services for people working on employment options in North Carolina. There will also be several of us at the I2I conference here in Raleigh in the middle of June. So our webinars, as always, we have these webinars usually every 2 months. We were excited to be able to offer this one today. In addition to the one we did last time, we will have our next one on June 18th. And at that point, we will be having a panel of people who employ people with disabilities, and they can share their insights and their experiences with us. So hope to see you all at those presentations. Next slide. And always, we want to let people know that we do have an advisory committee. We are very pleased to have people attend our advisory committee, especially people with lived experience. We also have a quarterly community awareness meeting, very important for us. That will be, we just had one, and the next one will be on July 15th. For any additional information, please reach out to me. My email address is here. And as always, reach out to me with any questions or concerns about any of the work that we're doing. Next slide. Okay, QR codes are available so that we can stay connected with you. So you can sign up for our Lunch and Learns. You can look at our webpage, join our mailing list. You can also look at the Work Together NC website which contains a lot of information about the work we're doing together with Work Together NC at UNC. Next slide. I think we took the questions. So Jay, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Thank you, Claire. The recording and presentation slides for today's event will be posted on the Inclusion Works website. The link is included in the chat. There will be a brief survey following today's webinar, and we would appreciate your time completing it. This concludes our webinar for today. Thank you for attending.